Hello, my name is Chad Preisler. Today, I'm going to talk to you about JavaFX TableView and a performance issue that I found with the sorted list. In JavaFX, we have a table view, and you can attach a sorted list to it. When you do that, you can click on the column headings and sort the table. What I found is that when you attach a sorted list to the table view and you bulk load records into the table view, the UI becomes overwhelmed and unresponsive. What I did is I wrote a test application to clearly show the issue. This test application will iterate 400,000 times. Each iteration will create a random record, it'll bundle them up in groups of 50,000 and insert them into the table. Let's take a look at the application running. Before we run the application, let's take a look at the code. I have standard JavaFX table view and sorted list. In the initialize method, I create the sorted list, I set the table's items, and then I tell the table to sort by the date column. So let's load the table using the standard sorted list. You're going to see that the UI is unresponsive almost immediately, and the records are not loading very fast. Now if I let this run for about 10 minutes, you would eventually see the table load. So let's figure out why JavaFX is behaving this way. To figure out where the problem was, I used the Java flight recorder and mission control. I drilled down into method profiling and saw that the update indices method for sorted list gets called a lot, and so does next add. What these two methods are trying to do is update the indices for each record that gets inserted. It also tries to update the UI. When this happens, the UI becomes unresponsive like we saw in the test application. So let's take a look at how I fixed it. So my first thought was, okay, let's update the standard sorted list. However, when I took a look at that code, I saw that it was using these con.sun packages. I couldn't find the source code for those packages, and I didn't feel comfortable trying to update this code not knowing what these methods do. So what I decided to do was write my own sorted list implementation. Let's take a look at what I did. At a very high level, my custom sorted list uses two versions of the list internally, one sorted and one unsorted. It also can be constructed using single threads or multiple threads. The single-threaded model gives a pretty good user experience. The multiple-threaded model gives an even better user experience. My custom sorted list also has filtering built in. In JavaFX, we can attach a filtered list to a sorted list. And I found a small performance issue when you were going from a filtered version of the list to the unsorted version of the list. To address that, I built filtering into my list and fixed the issue. Let's take a look at the running code. Before we run the application, let's take a look at the code and see what I had to change in order to use my custom sorted list. The first thing I did was I changed the import. Then down in the code, I set the table's sort policy, and that's it. This is going to run in the single-threaded model. Let's take a look. Okay, let's load the table. You're going to see that the records load pretty quickly, and the UI is slightly more responsive than it was before. Now let's take a look at this running in multi-threaded mode. Before we run the application, let's change the code to make it multi-threaded. What I need to do is come in here and add true to the constructor. And now it'll run with multiple threads. Let's load it. Alright, so you can see that the user interface is very responsive and the records are loading very quickly. That's it for the demo portion of this presentation. I am going to get into the sorted list and its threaded model and exactly how it works, but if this is all the further you get in my presentation, thanks for watching. I want to let you know that the sorted list does pass the JavaFX unit test and that the source code is available and the links are available in the description down below. So now let's get into the sorted list threaded model. Okay, so internally, the sorted list uses a single threaded executor to run any state updates to the list itself. So add, remove, update indexes, those are all done on the single threaded executor. Once those changes are done and the table needs to be updated, the table updates are done back on the JavaFX thread. Okay, so now let's take a look at how we would use this in a typical application. In our application, we have a controller object, and the controller object creates a table view. We get the items and we pass those items to the sorted list. We then create a worker thread passing the same items to the query worker thread. Now the items are an observable list. We then start the query worker thread. Now the query worker thread goes out and pulls the records. In our demo application, it was the thing that was looping 400,000 times and putting the records on the table view. In this diagram, it's pulling from Kafka. So that will run forever and it'll keep pulling records. And in this diagram, every 10 seconds, it calls platform run later, takes whatever records it has, and puts them on the JavaFX thread and calls update on the observable list. When it does that, the sorted list has its source changed method called. Remember, the sorted list is also an observable list. When this happens, the sorted list will schedule a thread on the single threaded executor. It'll go out and do its work. It'll add records, remove records, do whatever it has to do to update its internal state. It'll then call platform run later, again putting this work back on the main JavaFX thread to go out and basically notify the table view that there are changes. So this is how the application behaves, and this is how we got our performance improvement and the super smooth UI at the end that we saw loading the records. So that's it for this presentation. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you next time.